Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and over the last couple of years we've talked a lot about the regional monopoly that largely controlled internet service in my neck of the woods here in Connecticut, which is Comcast Xfinity. But over the last 2 years or so, we've seen an explosion of new options here in my home state, many of these available to me now in my hometown. So I can pretty safely say that the era of this regional monopoly, at least in my neck of the woods, is over for the most part, and we've got a lot of choice. And I suspect that many of you have these choices or similar ones in your neck of the woods. And what I thought I would do in this video is kind of step through the pros and cons of each of these types of services, fiber optic, cable, and wireless, so you can get a feel as to maybe what might work best for you and your particular situation. And we'll do that by looking through what I have available here at or near my home. So let's get into it. Now, the big news here in my town and many others throughout Connecticut is that Frontier, the phone company, has been running fiber optic cable all over the place. They just finished in my neighborhood, and I have a fiber optic terminal that I could plug into, if I pay them, of course, right at the end of my driveway now. And had this been available 2.5, 3 years ago when I had Comcast put in their Gigabit Pro fiber, I probably would have gone with this because it is there, it's fiber optic, it's symmetrical, and it's pretty reasonably priced. Right now, they're offering their base plan at $50 a month, and that is for their 500 megabit symmetrical plan, 500 megabits down and 500 up. I think for almost all residential customers, that is going to be more than enough, but they're now offering a 5 gigabit plan that they're selling here for $155 a month, which is probably not a bad deal for what you're getting there. And this is about half at the 5 gig plan of what I'm paying for 6 gigabits from Comcast. And I'll talk a little bit later about what I'm going to do with my internet service here in the house. But you can see here it's pretty reasonably priced, and fiber is a reliable technology. I did do a review of Frontier Fiber over the summer when my dad got it in his neighborhood. He signed up for the 500 megabit plan, and it feels pretty good to me. It was able to meet the advertised speeds and speed tests, and I found doing things like uploading to YouTube and other activities was about where I expected a service like this to perform, especially on the upstream. Now, the technology that Frontier is using is called XGS-PON. It can go up to 10 gigabits per second to the home if they enabled those speeds. And this technology is very similar to what other fiber providers are using in other parts of the country for residential internet like this. Now, Frontier, though, has had some troubles over the years. Namely, they were in bankruptcy up until about 2 years ago. They managed to refinance their debt and pull themselves out of bankruptcy, and then they acquired more debt to do this fiber rollout. Because a lot of the debt that they accrued was a result of buying up all of these old copper phone networks all over the country. It was a good move in the sense that it gets them a position on the pole, but nobody wanted the copper service anymore, and they didn't have money to run fiber after they did those acquisitions. So now that they've got their finances straightened out, that was how they were able to get this rolling. And there was definitely some fallout from the acquisition of the copper lines here in Connecticut. Frontier last year had to pay $60 million to the state of Connecticut over a number of customer complaints, and there were similar issues with Frontier in other parts of the country, but they managed to get that taken care of. I haven't heard much one way or the other from folks about customer service related to the fiber product, but I do have some concerns about their ability to support all of it, especially when we get large storms like we get here from time to time. Now, another problem erupted, though, when they were running all these fiber optic cables. Frontier got fined another $5 million because they were doing unsafe excavations. In some cases, they were running fiber optic cable through the power company's electrical conduits. So there were some real problems with the contractors that Frontier was using to do some of this work and continues to use. And in fact, Frontier's own union, the CWA, has been very unhappy about how the company went about putting these fiber optic cables in all over the place. They're not really using any Frontier employees to do it. They're mostly using subcontractors. And I don't know if they have the workforce to really maintain this network day to day, again, especially if we have a catastrophic storm like we get here from time to time. Now, Frontier has chosen to get this fiber rollout going over beefing up their local workforce, and the result are poles like this all over the state that they're responsible for. So this pole got hit by a car. It sat like this for well over a year. And the only reason why they came out and fixed it was that I found the right person at the regulator to talk to get them here to get that pole out of the ground. But there are many, many more poles like this all over the state. And a lot of them are owned by Frontier because they took over the old phone company's responsibilities there. And they're just not getting to this stuff, not because their workers don't want to, it's that there's not enough workers to do it. And this, again, is why I'm concerned that if we have a major storm, will they be able to restore their network quickly if they can't get to the routine maintenance that they are required to do? And this is going to be another area that regulators are focusing on because there are just hundreds, if not thousands, of these derelict poles all over the place. And in many cases, I've seen it around my neck of the woods, the contractors are putting the fiber optic cables on these old poles even when a new one is sitting right next to it. So they're not doing any of the maintenance work that they should be doing as they're bringing these fiber optic cables to neighborhoods. Another bit of headwind for Frontier is that about a week or two ago, their financial outlook was downgraded to negative by Fitch Ratings. And although Frontier has plenty of cash on hand in the short term, if they are going to borrow more money, that money is going to get a lot more expensive, not only because interest rates are going up, but also because ratings agencies like this are rating the company at a higher risk, which commands a higher interest rate. So Frontier is not out of the woods here financially, but at least now they're borrowing money for a product that people actually want to buy versus maintaining old infrastructure. So stay tuned on that. We'll see if they can get enough customers to make their product competitive. Now, speaking of competitive, another company coming to my region is GoNetspeed. Now, they've been in other parts of Connecticut, and they started a number of years ago, I think probably 2018 or 2019 or so. And a few of my friends who live in West Hartford, Connecticut, have their service and are very happy with it. This is another GPON fiber optic service. And what they've done, because they're not a huge company, is they start in a neighborhood somewhere and then branch out as consumer interest increases. And it's been a very good strategy for them. And although they don't cover a lot of places here in the state, they cover enough to make their business sustainable and profitable. And there are now some areas of the state that they're moving into next. You can see some of those orange blobs on the map indicating where they're off to next. And they just got a big deal with the city of New Britain to wire up their entire city. So they've got a lot of positive directions there. And their service prices are competitive here. So as you can see, they start a little under Frontier, although you get a 12-month promotional price, which is $10 off their regular prices here. So they're pretty much in line with Frontier with similar service levels. They don't have a 5 gigabit service or a 2 gigabit that Frontier offers, but I think the speeds here are more than enough for most consumers. Now, like other fiber optic products, they are offering symmetrical speeds. So what you see here is what you get both up and down. About a year or two ago, we interviewed an executive from GoNetspeed to learn more about the company and the types of planning that they have to do to make sure they can have enough infrastructure to support the bandwidth needs of their customers. It was a great discussion. They were very open about how their business works. In fact, they're so open, they invited us to come to one of their points of presence in a couple of days to get a behind-the-scenes look as to how their ISP operates. And I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you too. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be visiting GoNetspeed in a few weeks. And incidentally, they're the only ISP in Connecticut that was willing to let me come and check them out. So I'm really excited to see all the stuff that they have that makes their service work. So that is GoNetspeed. Now, another option here is Starlink, which is the SpaceX offering. Now, this is not something that would work as a day-to-day ISP for me because I do have better options available. But for my brother who lives up in northern Vermont, it's his only option, and he is very happy with it. And of course, we did a couple of visits up to him to see how it's working for him. But what Starlink is for me is a backup option should we have a big storm and I'm knocked out for a while. So I do have a Starlink dish in my basement back there, and it sits until it is needed. And if so, I can put it out in my backyard and get decent enough speeds, not only for usage here in the house, but also for uploading my YouTube videos. So as you can see here, we're pushing about 20 megabits per second upstream. This was from a video I did about 1.5 years ago when I first got the dish. I'm not paying for the service now. It's only if I need it. But I do plan on activating Starlink the next time I have a long duration outage, so I'm not sitting in parking lots uploading from my mobile phone. Starlink, though, of course, is having some growing pains, and they are implementing data caps. I think they may have pushed back the caps again, but they are finding that their service is becoming a victim of its own success to some degree, and they are continually launching new satellites into orbit to meet the demand and upgrade the service. So I think the service will improve. From what I'm seeing on some of the speed test aggregators, that Starlink service is starting to look a little better now in March of 2023 than it was a few months ago. And again, this is not an option for everyone, but a good option, I think, for those in rural areas without a good choice of internet provider. Now, closer to terra firma here, there's 2 other wireless options that are making their way into my region, and those come from Verizon Wireless and T-Mobile. Let's take a look at the Verizon service first. Now, this is being offered as kind of an add-on to an existing mobile account. So if you have a mobile phone with them already, it's $35 a month. If you don't, it is $70 a month, at least for their Home Plus service. What you get, though, is a 12-month subscription to Walmart Plus for that extra $10. Additionally, you get a 3-year price guarantee along with some cloud storage. But if you don't need that, the regular home service is fine, and I think is running at the same speeds. Now, one of the things they don't do, though, is advertise what those speeds are, because it's so subjective based on where you might be located. So they just offer the service, and if you can get it, whatever speed you get is what you're going to get. They don't, though, have a data cap on this. Now, a friend of mine around the corner has been using this for a couple of months now. He got rid of Comcast completely and is quite happy with it because he's very close to his tower. And I'm going to take a ride over there and test it out in a couple of days, and we'll do another video on it. This is the gateway that he has, and as you can see at the bottom, it's got Wi-Fi built in, but also 2 Ethernet jacks, so you can plug in with a wired connection to get the best possible speed out of it. Now, T-Mobile is not in my immediate area, but I think in other parts of Connecticut. Their service offering is $50 a month, and I don't believe they require you to have a T-Mobile phone. But again, like Verizon, they're offering anywhere between 33 and 182 megabits per second for what they can provide to the customer. So no guarantees here. You're going to get what you get. But they do provide a range here, which Verizon doesn't do. But I found the best way to figure out what kind of speed you're going to get is to take out the phone that you have and see how it does. So, for example, at my house here, I don't do very well at all. I get, about 20 to 25 megabits per second downstream, which, for browsing the web is fine, but for anything else, it's not so great. But my upstream here is abysmal, as you'll see in a second when the test cycles. So this is just, for my purposes, unusable. It's almost DSL speeds from where I am here at the house. And the funny thing is, my friend around the corner is maybe 1.5 miles away. It's a big area, so the around the corner is a relative term. But he gets much better performance at his place just because of where he's at in relation to his tower. And he's up at a higher elevation than I am, so he's doing better. So again, it's just going to vary a lot based on your particular location. But before you pull the trigger on one of these wireless services, take your phone out and run a speed test at the nearest window to see how you might do. And in the case of Verizon, they've got their ultra-wideband activating in a lot of denser populated areas. And I've been surprised how well it works, even indoors, believe it or not. So there's some parts of town right now that are getting gigabit download speeds and about 30 to 50 megabits up, which is pretty darn good for a wireless service. So take a test and see how it does. And then, of course, we've got the cable company, Xfinity. They're still here. They're not going anywhere. They've got the customer base, and what they have to do now is go on the defensive and find ways to retain customers that now have a lot of choices. So they've rebranded their internet service as 10G. I don't think this is 10th generation. I think it stands for 10 gigabits because that's the backbone of their network. And what they're offering in the short term are speed bumps. In fact, they've got a performance starter plan that is symmetrical, 75 down and up. And they've been upping the upload speeds on a number of their other packages. Again, just kind of a Band-Aid here to try to stop the bleeding from some of these fiber providers coming in. However, you don't get these speeds, especially on the upstream, unless you are an XFi Complete subscriber, which is a $25 a month plan, which gets you their Wi-Fi router and some other things in addition to that. But if you like to bring your own router to the mix and not give them any more money a month, you do not get access to these performance increases, at least in the short term, according to their press release there. One thing that I thought was funny about this, though, is that they are guaranteeing you a tech upgrade every 3 years that you're paying for them. Now, as we saw in one of my last videos, my mother had cable boxes that were over 10 years old. They never offered to replace those at all, but they kept increasing the price of those old cable boxes. Here it looks like they're trying to give you some assurances that you will get an upgrade over time if you stay in the plan. However, you only get the upgrade if you ask for it. So if you don't ask for it, they'll keep you on the old equipment until it stops working, I guess. So there you go. They're still up to their old tricks here. But what they are looking at is dramatically changing the way their cable modem product works. They're not switching the fiber, but they are very much invested in DOCSIS 4.0, which will allow for up to 4 gigabit per second symmetrical speeds, very much a fiber optic-like product, over coax cable. It's going to change a lot in how they offer TV services and everything, but they can do it. It's possible. The laws of physics allow it, and I've been seeing them out in my area upgrading all of the amplifiers, trying to get ready for this. They do have a lot more infrastructure to support because there's a lot that they have to keep working on the wires to make this all work, but they're sticking with coax. And I think what you'll see in the next year or two is at a minimum a gigabit symmetrical product from Comcast to compete with some of these fiber products that are also offering gigabit symmetrical service. Now, the product that I am using from Comcast is very different. It's called Gigabit Pro. And although it is a fiber optic product, it is a different fiber optic product than most residential fiber providers will give you. So this is basically an Ethernet connection from me back to the Comcast head end that's about 8 miles away from me. So I've got my own road essentially into their network, and it costs a lot more as a result of this, and it's a lot harder for them to bring it to customers versus a shared fiber optic service like Frontier and GoNetspeed do. Now, when I got the service back in October of 2020, it was 2 gigabits symmetrical. Now, at the same price, it is 6 gigabits. And what Comcast is doing is every time they feel a competitor is getting close to them in speed, they just bump the Gigabit Pro speeds up here so that they can say that they have the fastest network. And at least in my area, they still do, because the fastest that Frontier offers is 5. Comcast is giving me 6. And this service has been incredibly reliable here. And I know I'm critical of Comcast a lot. This is one area where I'm not going to be because the product is actually a good product. I am paying super top dollar for it at $320 a month. I have to rent equipment to use it because I've got this big iron network switch that they brought in to connect to their network with. But I have had only minutes of downtime in 2.5 years. It has been up. It has been rock solid. The speeds are there, but also the reliability is there. And everything that I do in the home here is working perfectly and has been since day one. I never even needed the 6 gigabits. The 2 was fine. But it is nice to be able to do this and show off every once in a while. But it's been a great connection. And as such, if you were to ask me, am I going to switch to Frontier? The answer is no. I'm going to stick with Xfinity unless they up my price significantly. And the reason why I'm sticking with it is that it's a good product, and I'm willing to pay for good products that have a good support structure behind it, and that's what this product has. And I really wish Comcast would take what works here and apply it across the rest of their service offering, because I think they could be retaining customers here by just doing what they do better and not nickel and diming people constantly. But that's a whole nother discussion. So bottom line here is I'm sticking with Gigabit Pro for the foreseeable future because it is a solid offering and I am quite happy with it. So that is a lay of the land here for internet service providers where I am. And hopefully this video helped you understand some of the differences between these products. I would say at the moment, fiber optic is the way you should go if you have it available where you are. It is a better technology, in my opinion, than coax. There's less variables in the mix in getting your signal from your home to the central office points of all these different providers. But some of the wireless options might work well depending on where you're located. So take your phone out, run a couple of speed tests, and see what you can get out of it. You might be able to save yourself a lot of money and get what you need out of your internet provider. Now, this video, as always, is being brought to you by all of you, and I want to thank some new supporters here on the channel who signed up via the YouTube membership program. They are Maurice F3 and Renan Sumter Jr., and I want to thank everyone who contributed this week and everyone who's been contributing on an ongoing basis, and all of you who watch on a regular basis too, because all of those things equal channel growth. If you want to support the channel, you can. You can go to Lon.TV/support and make a monthly or a one-time contribution to the channel. We support the YouTube membership program, Floatplane, and Patreon as well. We have a bunch of other channels you can find me on, including my Extras channel for supplementary content and unboxings. And of course, we've got my Amazon page where we have most of my product reviews up ad-free. And that is going to do it for this week's look at the ISP landscape. I'll probably have more related to this topic as situations develop here. I'm also in the process of getting an antenna put up on my roof, and I'll be doing a video about that in the near future to get my free broadcast TV networks, and that might inspire me to make some changes to my TV side of my cable bill. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon Seidman. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Chris Allegretta, Hot Sauce and Video Games, Logic KGR, Tom Albrecht, and Amda Brown. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.